Hey guys, welcome back to the video. I'm Luke, an ACA qualified accountant, having passed all 15 of my ACA exams at the first attempt while studying at a Big Four firm. And after my time at the Big Four, I transitioned into a career within investment banking, and I now spend my time helping current ACA candidates pass their exams. And in today's video, we're going to discuss the professional level business planning tax exam. Now, I've got to be honest up front, BPT is the hardest exam you're going to face on the ACA qualification. It's technically demanding, but also the way it's examined makes it a really tough exam. It's extremely time pressured. It has a very broad syllabus and broad scope, and it requires you to apply judgment-based advice in the exam, which makes it very different to all of the other exams you're going to come across on the qualification. It's not testing your knowledge, it's testing your ability to provide real-life tax advice to individuals and companies. It's not about delivering straightforward right or wrong answers, it's really testing your application of everything you've learned from principles of tax compliance, and now BPT. And fun fact, it actually used to be an advanced level paper. The ICAEW decided to downgrade it to professional level a few years back, but it still has all of the challenging concepts and the material that were examined when it was an advanced level paper. So it may sit at the professional level, but really it has all the tropes and challenges of an advanced level ACA exam. Most candidates do agree passing this exam acts as a huge milestone, so make sure you think about it that way if you're studying towards it and you're finding it really difficult. If once you do get through this exam, you've only got a couple of exams left. You're well on your way to becoming a chartered accountant. So if you're struggling right now with the content, mock exams, or your revision, do stay focused. Once you get this exam out of the way, it's relatively smooth sailing from here. Once you have passed this exam, you've overcome the biggest hurdle that you're going to face. So in this video, we're going to discuss some tips and some advice to help hone your revision and study strategy. And hopefully by the end of the video, you're going to feel much more confident walking into the BPT exam on exam day. So yeah, let's get started. My first piece of advice to doing well in the BPT exam is to prioritize time management. Now, the number one reason why candidates fail the BPT exam is poor time management. This exam is incredibly time pressured, and you're going to need to utilize every minute of this exam productively. In this exam, you're going to face 3 questions with multiple sub-requirements. You have to answer every single question in this paper to stand a chance of doing well. Failing to complete all of the requirements and all of the sub-requirements on the BPT exam paper is going to increase your chance of failure dramatically. People who fail this exam 90% of the time have poor exam technique. They fail to stick to their time allocations, and they run out of time to answer certain requirements or even sub-requirements, and they fail to complete the paper. Here's what you need to do well in this exam. As soon as you get into the exam room and you open your exam paper, you need to work out how much time you have to spend on each question. Once you've read through the question, you've got a good feel of how many marks each sub-requirement is going to have. You need to map out the marks for each question, and then you need to stick to those time allocations strictly. Once you get to the end of a sub-requirement and you've run out of time, you need to move on to the next sub-requirement straight away. Don't fall into the trap of writing way too much for one question because you feel like you haven't written everything you can. You need to be really strict with your time management. As soon as you've run out of time for a sub-requirement, just move on to the next one. Don't fall into that trap of just getting down one more point and overrunning on your timings, eating into your time allocation for the next requirement. You'll lose easy marks on the next question if you do this. Staying on the first question for far too long can lead to you maybe accumulating 1 or 2 more marks, but you run the risk of losing out on 10, 12, 13 easy marks on the next question if you fail to complete the paper. I've seen so many candidates pass this exam who weren't able to master all of the tax rules and all of the tax treatments, but had brilliant time management and fantastic exam technique. So if you can master exam technique, prioritize time management, and put that at the forefront, you'll stand a really good chance of passing the exam. My second piece of advice is to get good at estimating the marks for each sub-requirement. Now, this builds on my first piece of advice. One of the tricky things about BPT, and what makes it very different to all of the other exams you're going to sit on the ACA qualification, is that you're given a total mark allocation for a question, but you're not given a split of the marks across each of the sub-requirements. And this can be super frustrating because you'll be presented with multiple sub-requirements, but you won't know how many marks each sub-requirement is worth. You'll know how many marks the question as a whole is worth, but not how many marks each of the sub-requirements is worth. So not only do you need to answer the question, you need to guess how many marks each of the sub-requirements commands so that you don't write too much or too little. And this is a really important skill you need to develop before you walk into the BPT exam. You need to be competent and confident that you're able to accurately estimate how many marks each sub-requirement is worth. So here's what you need to do in the exam. You need to write out each of the sub-requirements in your exam script, and in your head make an educated guess as to how many marks each sub-requirement is worth. Allocate your time accordingly, and this all comes back to time management. If you can get good at estimating how many marks each sub-requirement carries, you'll be able to allocate requisite time to be able to answer them. And again, you'll get a really good feel for this through your question practice. So when you're going through question banks and mock exam papers, get into the habit of estimating how much time each sub-requirement is going to be worth, because you'll need to do this in the exam. As you practice more mocks and question bank questions, you're going to get better and faster at being able to allocate and guesstimate how many marks each sub-requirement carries. Practice is only going to make perfect when it comes to this, and it's only going to take 1 or 2 minutes to guess how many marks are allocated to each sub-requirement in the real exam, but it's well worth doing because you'll get a feel for exactly how much you need to write. My third piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the BPT exam is, before you start writing on exam day, make sure you do a proper plan. Now, I'm the kind of person that never writes a plan in an exam. I know you're always told it's best practice to write out a proper plan, but look, I'm a terrible person, I never do it. However, in BPT, you absolutely have to make a plan. The scenarios are long, they're detailed, they're intricate. If you don't plan, you'll get lost. The detail in the scenario is going to completely overwhelm you. You'll miss out key points and you'll end up just wasting time. So before you start writing your answer to your scenario-based questions, spend about 15 minutes per question planning. In your exam script, you write out subheadings for each sub-requirement, and you just write 5 to 6 bullet points under each subheading with key ideas and issues that you want to comment upon when you're answering each sub-requirement. This will give you a really good structure, outlining what exactly you're going to talk about and discuss in your answer. Preparing a plan up front keeps your writing focused and make sure that you cover off all of the key points and key issues from the scenario that you want to discuss in your answer. Bullet points are fine, you don't need to write long form prose. Writing a plan keeps the scenario fresh because, again, there's so much information you need to get to. Writing out a plan gets out all of the key points without writing paragraphs of text. Practice making good quality plans when you're doing your question bank practice and your mock exams, because investing time in good quality plans can really help you draw out extra marks in the real exam. My fourth tip is to master the open book format. Now, this is probably going to be the first exam on the ACA qualification where you can take in anything you want. And this can sometimes be a bit of a blessing and sometimes a bit of a curse. You can literally take in anything. Nothing's off limits. You can take in your notes, past papers, question banks, the workbook, tax tables. You can take in whatever you want, but don't make the mistake of thinking that you have the time to look up everything that you need in your notes. My advice of things to take in on exam day: I would take a well-organized, well-tabbed workbook or copy of your own summarized notes, which summarize the workbook, color-coded if you can. I would take in your question bank with model answers marked up, so those model answers that you see tested time and time again. I would have both the question and the mark scheme tabbed up, and I would also take in your tax tables. Your workbook or your personalized notes are going to be the most important resource that you take in on exam day. So I can't stress how important it is to ensure that you're comfortable knowing where everything is in the workbook or your personalized notes, and just making sure everything's organized and you know where everything is so you can easily get to the relevant sections when you need them. During the exam, I would have the notes open on your lap, not on the side or on the floor. You need to have them really easily accessible. So I always kept my notes on my lap so I could easily just flick through everything. I know it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's important to have your key notes and key material to hand and as close as possible, because you are going to be relying on it during the exam. Make sure you know where everything is, especially those key technical areas like VAT, transfer of a going concern, entrepreneur's relief. Just make sure you're super comfortable and you know where those key areas are within your notes. And I remember when I sat BPT, there was a question in the ethics section, which was an exact replica of a question that I'd seen in the question bank. So I just got out the question bank, went to that question and went to the mark scheme and just copied out the same answer, and I got full marks for it. Because sometimes you will get questions in the BPT exam which are very similar to questions you will have seen in the question bank. So make sure you take the question bank with you and make sure you've done all of the questions so you're super comfortable, because it's not unheard of that very similar questions can come up in the real BPT exam. My penultimate piece of advice when it comes to the business planning tax exam is to expect to feel the panic. Everyone I know, myself included, had a moment when we started the BPT exam where we read through the scenario and thought, look, I don't remember any of this, I'm going to fail this exam, and the panic set in. It's normal, you're going to feel it in this exam, and you need to find a way to get through it. This exam is very challenging, very time pressured, very technically demanding. It's completely normal for candidates to panic in this exam. It happened to me, it happens to so many others. Once you read through that first question, you'll just get this feeling of dread, being like, oh, I just don't know how to address this. You know, I can't remember this, I can't remember that, I'm gonna fail. It happens to absolutely everyone. So if it happens to you on exam day, it's okay. Just take a breather, reread the scenario slowly, start building out a bullet point plan, keep moving forward through the exam. Don't stress, everyone is going to be feeling the exact same way as you are. Everyone's going to be feeling overwhelmed and stressed out and panicked. You're not going to be alone in that exam hall. Don't let that initial wave of panic and stress derail you. It's temporary. Once you start moving through the exam, things will start to click into place and your stress levels will slowly reduce. Keep writing, keep getting through the questions, keep making progress. The feeling of stress and panic is going to pass, but only if you keep making progress through the exam paper. If you stall and you stop writing and you stop doing anything, your feelings of anxiety and stress are only going to rise. The only way your anxiety is going to subside is if you keep making progress through the exam. You keep writing, you keep answering questions. If you do that, you're going to start to relax and ease into the exam paper a little bit more. Take a minute, take a breath. In the context of a 3-hour exam, taking a minute or two just to settle yourself and calm your nerves is nothing. Now, my final piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the BPT exam is to not neglect ethics. Now, BPT, as I've discussed ad nauseum in this video, is a very technically challenging and technically demanding exam. The tax treatments that you're going to come across are just difficult to get your head around, and you're going to lose a lot of marks on these areas. It's almost guaranteed because you're just not going to be able to remember everything on exam day. No one expects you to get 100% on this exam. So with that in mind, you should be aiming to accumulate as many of the easier marks as you possibly can in the exam. And ethics is one of those areas which is a bit more straightforward. Ethics is so consistent throughout the tax exams on the ACA qualification. There's really only so many questions you could be asked on the ethics syllabus. And ethics typically makes up around 6 to 7% of the marks in this exam. Topics include the same old usual topics that you've seen in principles of tax and tax compliance. You've got tax avoidance versus tax evasion, money laundering, conflicts of interest. It's the same old stuff that comes up again at BPT. There's not really too much that's going to be built on at this level. A lot of the knowledge that you accumulated regarding ethics at principles of tax and at tax compliance still applies here. So the good news when it comes to ethics is you're going to face the same types of ethics question time and time again. The mark scheme answers are often very similar and repetitive, and therefore you can memorize the structure of good answers from the mark scheme and reuse them in the exam. Obviously you still need to tailor your answer to the scenario that you're given, but the mark scheme answers for the ethics question in the BPT question bank represent a great foundation for what points you need to hit in the actual BPT exam. So my recommendation is to go through all of the ethics questions in the question bank, tab them all up, tab the ones that you think are most likely to come up in the real exam and be tested in a similar way, and aim to get full marks on all of these ethics questions. The BPT exam is brutally difficult, so we want to be aiming to get full marks on the ethics section because we know it is one of the more straightforward, higher level areas of the syllabus. Cool, so that's some tips to help you guys pass the BPT exam. Hopefully that was helpful. To summarize, time management is crucial. This is going to be a super time pressured exam, so you need to make sure you're diligent in answering each of the 3 requirements within the time allocations that you set yourself. You need to get good at being able to estimate the number of marks that are attached to each of the sub requirements because you're not given the number of marks in this exam. So get good at that when you're doing question bank practice, mock exam practice. Plan your time effectively. Make a proper plan for each question, even if you're the kind of person like myself that hates making plans. Making plans is a really good, efficient use of your time in BPT. It can help you reinforce what points you need to cover and discuss in your exam answer, and it can help create a structure for your answer as well. Use your open book smartly, don't use it for absolutely everything. You need to know a lot of the material in BPT off by heart because you won't have the time to flick through the open book to find out every single nuance or tax treatment. You need to know a lot of this stuff off by heart, but do use it for those more peripheral esoteric areas of the curriculum. Expect to feel panicked in this exam. I know I definitely did when I sat it. When you're answering the first question, you're going to have this feeling of dread and anxiety, and you're going to be telling yourself, oh look, I'm going to fail this, I'm going to fail, I don't know anything. And that's completely normal. If I were you, I would expect to feel that way, but also acknowledge that everyone else in your exam room is going to be feeling like that. So just keep making progress through the paper, keep getting answers down, and eventually that feeling will subside. And finally, try and maximize marks on the ethics section. We know this paper is technically demanding, we know it's challenging, but ethics is one of those areas where you can accumulate a lot of marks if you're well prepared. Cool, so that's the video. Hopefully that was helpful. If you've got any questions about BPT, the ACA qualification as a whole, please feel free to fire them off in the comments. If you like the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. I'm making tons of videos about the ACA qualification, and I'm making courses for all 15 of the exams. And if you've got the BPT exam coming up, I wish you the best of luck for it. You're going to absolutely smash it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.